Good afternoon, Mr. Nelums. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Man, thank you for joining me this afternoon. Looking forward to this conversation. For those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Chris Nelums. I am a pastor, entrepreneur, a father, grandfather, father of four, grandfather of 16,
Ooh,
and I enjoy what I do.
okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Nelums, what is it that you do?
I am an entrepreneur. We
Uh,
do construction,
okay.
uh, but I lean more so to the pastoral side.
Mhm.
Um, I pastor and oversee Speak to My Heart ministry, comprised of several churches, and so we work in the community diligently.
Okay. Um, Mr. Nelums, you're running for Commission of Agriculture on the United Citizens ballot. Before we get started, would you tell us a little bit about the United Citizens Party for those that don't know?
The United Citizens Party was formed in 1969 and became on ballot in 71 through the process by John Roy Hopper. That's an old name. And this party came out of concern that the Democrat and Republican Party was not speaking to the interests of Black folk. So this party was started by Blacks, funded by Blacks, and is run by Blacks, pretty much.
Mhm.
I am the chair of the UCP as of now. Um, and all of our agenda is based on upward mobility for all people, but in particular Black folk.
Mhm.
And then from a political perspective. So
Right.
this is not sort of like a civil rights type thing. It's more of a political thing, but it deals directly with upward mobility in a political arena for Blacks.
What are some of the main platform issues that the United Citizen Party champions?
Well, everybody knows we champion reparation. Um,
Mhm.
uh, we've been pushing on reparations for a long time, but it goes a little deeper than just that.
Mhm.
We champion, of course, civil rights, but political rights and educating folk on your political right and then how to vote,
Mhm.
understanding the voting process. I think a lot of us miss that piece in this thing called voting. We eliminate the herd mentality. I think most folk don't realize that people just pull a lever and say, I voted. No, we want you to strive to understand why you're voting and who you're voting for, and then vote your best interests.
Mhm.
So those are some of the platforms that the UCP champions.
Okay. And so you're running for South Carolina Commission on Agriculture. Why not the Republican Party? Why not the Democratic Party? Why UCP?
Well, here's the thing. First off, I'm running for the Commission of Agriculture for the state of South Carolina, not for no political party in particular. This
Okay.
is about South Carolinians. This is about looking out for our best interests. I'm talking about the South Carolinians. I'm talking about financial upward mobility for our folk in South Carolina. UCP gives me a large array of tools to work with. I'm not pinned down in no box, and that's the most important thing.
Mhm.
Um, when we look at some of the things that we champion, some of the things that we're pushing, like the hemp, uh, like Medicaid, Medicare, how hemp will help that, like how hemp will help the construction aspect, how hemp will help the fuel. I mean, hemp in and of itself will help a lot of things. And I will go into a little detail about that in a moment. But then we start talking about the farming aspect. How about the Black farmers? How the Black farmers have been taken advantage of all these many years. And even when we've had lawsuits that was that had already been granted to grant Black farmers funds, all of a sudden, the money disappeared. Gatekeepers. This particular department has a whole lot in terms of gatekeepers, those who are not allowing not only Black farmers, but all of the constituents of the state of South Carolina to reap the benefits that they're deserving. So, yes, I'm running for the Commissioner of Agriculture, and yes, there are some things that I know I can do, especially in the administration field, being able to organize that department where it'll run a little bit more efficient and be able to get some things out to the public that will be in their best interest. So, yes, that's why I'm running under the UCP ticket.
Okay. If elected, could you talk about 3 of your top issues?
Well, the first issue would be organization. I look at organization as the key. I come in the first 100 days. More often, I won't touch anything, but I will evaluate and examine things because there are some things that need to be replaced. So we just don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you examine to see how they've been functioning over the last years. And then while I am evaluating, I'm also be implementing some of the things that I see that are necessity, like how I can take the gloves off of the hemp market and start moving that forward in South Carolina. Then I will also look at the trading aspect, import, export, how I will be able to start doing business with other countries. Believe it or not, the Commissioner of Agriculture is supposed to be the top seller in the state of South Carolina to bring revenue into this state. And the only way that he can do that is that he has to have the ability to communicate with folk from other places and share with them all of the rich and vast, not only items, or I'm talking about commodities, because this is a commodity that we're dealing with. Whether it's farming, whether it's chicken growing, whether it's hog farming, whether it's horses, we have an array of things that we need to share with the public and with other countries.
Okay. Why are you focused on, I noticed your website is not Nelums for South Carolina, anything like that. It's Nelums for hemp. Why is hemp such an important part of this campaign?
Well, first off, we have overlooked it. It's an item that it has been overlooked. It has been criminalized. You know what I mean by that. Anytime somebody say hemp, the first thing that comes to their mind is marijuana. Well, and we're talking about that cannabis it has many varieties, and it has so many purposes, and even the stalk, what the stalk does. And so this one product will change the whole economic stability of the state of South Carolina. I'm talking about for all South Carolinians. And so, yeah, I'm pushing hemp, but that's not the only item that I'm pushing. But I believe that hemp is that bread and butter. That's the one that's going to carry us to the promised land. That's the one that will financially give us stability. Now, we have to take the gloves off. And what I mean by that is we have all of these gatekeepers that are restricting some of the farmers from really reaching their productive. And so, and that's a problem. They tell you, okay, we're going to grow hemp, which is fine. And then when they get to a point, they are making medial income. And that's what it's not designed for. It's designed for maximum income. Again, it takes what we call common sense leadership. And that's what we don't have now. Once I get into the chair and bring about common sense leadership, and then I can show them how we can economically take hemp and make the state of South Carolina one of the greatest hemp states in the United States. People been getting stuff from Canada. Why do we need to go to Canada when we can do all we need to do right here in South Carolina? So I think for the most part, we need to rethink our position. We need to rethink those that have been in the position and have covered this position for the last 24 years and have not done nothing. that doesn't mean that they haven't held a spot down, but if you have an opportunity to best benefit the state and you choose not to, of course, you would say, I haven't done the state no harm, but you've done us a great disservice.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mr. Nellums, what are some of the roles and some of the duties of the agricultural commissioner here in South Carolina?
Yes. Well, his responsibility is really to the public, making sure that all of the goods and services, I'm talking about in terms of food services, are appropriate. Okay. So he has folk go out and they look at whether it's a chicken farm, whether it's a hog farm, making sure that they're following the proper procedures. He looks at, of course, everybody that knows his name is on the gas pump.
Right.
Well, most people don't really take that seriously, but he evaluates and tests the gas. But it's more so than that. He handles all commodities, even though he has a greater role than he actually act upon. So what I mean by that is that there's a lot of things that he could do that he's not doing. And so what I propose is for us to work outside the box, expand his role into territories that will affect the common man in terms of home building. He can affect that, and he does affect that with the products. Medicaid and Medicare, medicine. We talked about some of the bills that are coming down. Of course, we got a lot of synthetic medicine, but why not go back to the natural medicines? Okay. And that comes back from farmers growing natural herbs that will heal more so than just sustain. It will heal the body. So, I mean, he plays a tremendous role. He just has to do, or let me put it this way, I would like to do is go through and step outside the box and bring more a closer tie to the community.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Nellums, how does South Carolina farmers in general measure up to their national counterparts? How are we doing in the agriculture industry?
Well, and I'm gonna break that down in two levels. When we start talking about South Carolina farmers and we start talking about Black farmers,
okay,
there is a disparity with Black farmers. Okay, and so we don't never, when we say South Carolina farmers, we kind of put them all in a barrel, and some of them will tell you, well, we're doing okay, from a percentage wise, we run about 40%. But when we start talking about South Carolina farmers, it's different from Black farmers in South Carolina. Mm-hmm. They're being given handouts instead of giving a hand up. And so I propose to focus in on the minorities and the Black farmers and give them a hand up. And so, and I'm not always talking about just giving them grant money, because yes, I'm going to infuse grant money, but then I want to be able to show them about true entrepreneurship, going through and walking with them and ensuring that they are successful and that they don't get caught up in a quagmire where they go in with mediocre dollars and expecting to make a great livelihood and come to find out they don't have anything to show for it. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like we need to spend a little bit more attention on our Black farmers in particular and our minority farmers. And what that means is not only Black farmers, but you have Hispanic farmers, you have women that are going into farming, you have those that are planting small gardens, and they need that assistance. And they're not getting it from this commission. Mm-hmm. So that's where we stand on that position.
Okay. I guess it's a sign of the times that with with technology being what it is, we have a lot of our our kids going to school and going to college and focusing on technology and going into the technical fields. South Carolina was back in the day was noted for its agriculture goods. And if you are elected as commissioner, what are your thoughts? Or do you have any ideas of how do you get more young people into going into the agricultural industry?
Yes. Well, a couple of things. First off, you start them out young. That's the first thing. You have to start them off appreciating what agriculture is and how it affects our daily life. I think one of the misnomers is that we have over the years shared with our children. I want you to go to school and get a good job. Okay. We don't teach entrepreneurship. And I think one of our greatest assets is teaching entrepreneurship, but also understanding that a good bit of your entrepreneurship comes from the earth. God made it so that we could always go back to the earth and we can make a living. And here's the thing. When you start looking at, we always measure doctors and lawyers and we think that they are successful. But when we look at the farmer, we don't think that he is successful. We think that that's something that is a non-successful or non-traditional job. But I'm here to share with you is that farmers are very successful and is a very proud and prestigious job. I think that when we start looking at farming and we start looking at whether we're cattle growing or whether we are producing a small garden, it's still a certain amount of success. Mm-hmm. And then so young people can start reaping that success early in life. We start in grade school. I know we have the 4-H clubs, but then I think once parents start putting that, when a child is 3 or 4 years old and we go into these daycares and these daycares start having little gardens and show them the importance of growing your own food. And then from a health perspective, as well as from an economic perspective. And then allowing them to move up through the system where we always taking care of ourselves. That's how we will get young people involved in it. And they know because they can Google online. They can hit Yahoo and pull up how to grow hemp or how to grow squash or how to grow tomatoes. They can do that. So it's not rocket scientists in one perspective. But then when you start getting down to the details of how to really get in a massive crop or effective crop, instead of you watering the plants from the top, why not water them from the root? And then putting systems in that would allow gardens to use a minimum amount of water. So we call that a water conservation. There's a lot that we can do based on the landscape. And that comes from, of course, Clemson Extension has its programs. A lot of other schools have their programs. And of course, when you get to that level, you'll be able to learn. But then once you get it, then you bring it back home with you. And you can make a very good living in this aspect. I believe that once we open up the door and show folk that, guess what, you can make a pretty good revenue because you're trading across water with folk, import, export. You have folk inside and we building houses with some of our products. I mean, the economy automatically goes up. And then we're not gauged by what the stock market says in New York, but we're gauged by our relationship with our partners across the water each and every day. Okay. Now we are the gauge makers as opposed to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Nellums, we've seen in the past couple of years that we have had some serious problems with the quality of our drinking water in South Carolina, especially in our rural areas. As if you're elected commissioner of agriculture, is there anything you can do for the citizens to ensure that we have access to clean water?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that. I took a trip to North Carolina. One of my classmates, she has a filtration system in North Carolina. I took this trip maybe I want to say about 5 or 6 months ago, and they were taking wastewater, and they were cleaning up wastewater. And this particular town had problems because they were dumping wastewater into the river, into the streams, into the water tables. And what she shared with me, and I saw this plant. It's a little small plant, and it's not that expensive. That's the most amazing part about it. It's not that expensive. That's something that I'm choosing to introduce to South Carolina, is how we can clean up our drinking water by cleaning up all of our places that have a lot of contamination. Now, it's going to take everybody cooperating. And a lot of these municipalities have their own issues going on, but they don't want to share with folk. They don't want to let folk know that, look here, our water is contaminated, or our water table in our area is contaminated. And so to keep folk from knowing that, they kind of hide it. But I think if everybody would bring it to the forefront and say, look here, I have a problem in my area. What can you do to help me? A lot of the farmers are noticing that they're getting contamination. And so what they say, well, what can we do to clean it up? But I think this particular product, and she lives here in South Carolina, but she has her plant in North Carolina, and it's a beautiful place. But we're looking to do a couple of sites in South Carolina. And so I'm excited about that. I'm excited about bringing that to South Carolina. I'm excited about, and also let me add this. When you clean the water up, you make the water, that particular water is not drinkable yet. You can use that for your gardens. You can use that to water your lawns. Then it has a next step that you go through. That next step, sometimes it's a little bit more expensive, but that step actually is drinking water. And that's where we want to really bring South Carolina to, putting these in these small small towns and small cities, and kind of clean them up. And then, like the city of Columbia and some of the other places, I think they have a water treatment plant, and that needs to be reevaluated, because you hear it often where city of Columbia say we have to shut down this part of the block because the water's got contaminated. And a good bit of this happens because of the fact that our pipes are old, the water lines are old, real old, and they need to be replaced. And we're not putting money back into our infrastructure. And that's an issue that can be rectified whenever we start taking the gloves off and allowing this economy to boom.
Mr. Nellums, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, find out more about your campaign, or perhaps send you a donation, how would they do that?
It's nelumsforhemp.com. And if you go on nelumsforhemp.com, you will see all of our information that deals with how we propose to tackle this issue of hemp, how we can better make our farmers much more sustainable. We have videos of looking at some of the byproducts of hemp, which is hemp fluorine, hemp studs, hemp lamb beans, and it talks about the hemp cement blocks, sheetrock. It just had a whole array of things on that web page. And then you have an opportunity to converse with me. I'm moving around the state and just sharing information so folk can have a better view on what South Carolina could be like. And then the great part about it, they have an opportunity to vote.
Okay. And on that note, Mr. Nellens, before you go, take a minute. If look into the camera and talk directly to the voters. Why should they vote for Chris Nellens for South Carolina Commissioner of Agriculture?
all you that are residents of the state of South Carolina, we have a major decision to make this year. I offer myself up as a candidate for the state of South Carolina Commission of Agriculture. I am the best choice. I'll bring true administrative to you. I bring innovative ideas, stepping outside the box, increasing this economy, and also being able to have a safe environment for those residents of the state of South Carolina. It's very simple to vote for me. You vote for me based on the UCP platform. And my name is Chris Nellums. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Nellens, thank you for taking time to sit down with us. And I definitely hope to have you back soon. Definitely, we can go on for hours about hemp. But we'll save that for another conversation. But thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.